My name is Barbara Wolf. I'm the city librarian here, and it is so great to see you all. Thank you so much for coming. And we have a famous author in the audience too, I want you to know. Buddhist Boot Camp.
Oh.
Stand up. Okay. Before we get started, Dr. Kerzin has reminded me that it's very important we turn off or mute ourselves. So let's all just take a quick moment to do that. He will be taking us through something that requires us not to have any distractions. You know, I was raised by a mother who always had one more seat at the table. And if you came to our front door when it was time to eat, she made us shuffle more chairs around, and she did her magic with the food and made it stretch. And I'm really sorry that we couldn't have had everybody in here. Dr. Kerzin has gone outside to speak to those that are unfortunately not able to make it in here. But we appreciate your patience. I know people started lining up before 5 o'clock. You know, one of the great pleasures of my job is when somebody comes into my office, like Dr. Bill Garlington did several months ago, and says, the Dalai Lama's personal physician is coming to Ventura County. Would you like to have him speak at the library? So I want to thank Dr. Garlington, and I want to thank Francis Elson for all the work they've done to pull this together. It was a big result. You know, but it made me think a little bit about libraries and why this is the perfect place to have this. So people for millennia have tried to make sense of their lives, to make meaning from their lives. And it's something that goes back and starts with the oral storytelling, the oral tradition, until we began to transcribe our stories and, of course, house them in what I like to call the greatest sharing experiment in the country, and that is the public library. So we want to hear how others have found their way. This month, very briefly, we are celebrating Camarillo Reads, and that's when we ask the entire community to read one book. And the reason that we do that is we want to have start conversations so that you can go to the grocery store, you can go to the farmer's market, and talk to your neighbor about something that touched you in a story. So what I'm going to ask you this evening is that you continue the conversation that we start here tonight. I encourage you to leave, when we leave, to do the same thing. Visit the library, find books on what touched you as you continue through the heart of your own journey after this evening. And now it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Dr. Kerzin. The Venerable Dr. Barry Kerzin received his BA in philosophy, pardon me, from UC Berkeley and his MD degree from USC. He was an assistant professor of family medicine at the University of Washington and a visiting professor at both Central University of Tibetan Studies in Varanasi, India, and Hong Kong University in 2014. He has resided for 24 years in the Dar Shlama, serving as a doctor to many High Lamas, including His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and also provides medical care to the poor. Having done many meditation retreats, including a 3-year retreat, I believe that was a silent retreat. Yes. His brain was studied as part of research on long-term meditators at the University of Wisconsin, Madison, and Princeton universities. Dr. Kerzin was ordained as a Buddhist monk by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and continues to be a diplomat in the American Board of Family Medicine and a fellow in the American Academy of Family Practice. He is a faculty member of the Mind and Life Institute and consults also for the Max Planck Institute on Training for Compassion. He is the founder and chairman of the Human Values Institute in Japan. Barry teaches compassion and secular ethics in medical schools and universities internationally and has delivered a TEDx talk on happiness. He has authored and contributed chapters for several books: The Tibetan Buddhist Prescription for Happiness, in Japanese, which will be translated into English. He also contributed chapters to Training Compassion and a chapter in the book, One Dharma, Many Buddhist Traditions. Numerous articles by and about him have also appeared in English, Japanese, and Russian languages. He is also the founder of the Altruism in Medicine Institute, which is the AIM Institute, which is a non-profit organization that seeks to understand through scientific research how altruism and positive mental states bring about good mental and physical health. So now, please help me welcome who we've all waited to hear. Get to see how it's done.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very, very much. I'm extremely happy to be here. I think many of you know this was my home, at least Ventura County, for many, many years, and that was many, many years ago. I do come back and visit sometimes, but the last few years I've been so busy traveling and teaching in so many countries that usually I come back here and I just veg out a little bit. But this time I wasn't so fortunate. Actually, I'm joking. I'm really happy to be here with you and share some of the things that I've learned over the years. Not much, it's maybe about that much, but a little bit. And most of what I've learned is from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is an amazing individual. Some people consider him to be not actually human. But of course he's in a body. And he talks and he tells jokes, and he's incredibly wise and always loving and compassionate. In a very most genuine way, not wanting anything in return. So I've picked up a few tiny little things from him over the last 25 years, and we'll share a few of those things. I'm assuming that this is not really a Buddhist audience. How many of you are Buddhist? Raise your hands if you're Buddhist. Oh my gosh, there's lots of Buddhists. How many people are any other religion besides Buddhist? Raise your hand. Okay, very nice, lots of great. How many people don't believe in religion at all? Raise your hand. Okay, that's a good number of people. Very nice, very nice. Actually, I don't believe in religion either. Almost. So to explain that, I have to say that Buddhism is not your typical religion. Okay. Actually, there are three parts to Buddhism, and then when I mention them, you'll understand. In fact, it's a little bit different than what we normally think of as religion. Part number one is science of the mind. Science of the mind is very much like psychology. It's dealing with our emotions that get us into trouble. It's how to deal with our anger, how to deal with our jealousy, how to deal with our pride, how to deal with our, when we kind of put someone down. We tend to do that a lot of the time, and often we're not aware of it. It's a little record that plays. We do it often subliminally. And that can be both. We can put ourselves down. Okay, I'm not so good. I'm not so pretty. I'm not so smart. Just on and on and on. Or sometimes the record changes. He is not so pretty. He is not so smart. She is not so good. We do that a lot. So negative judgment towards ourselves, towards others. Greed, opposite of generosity. Selfishness, which is the opposite of being loving and compassionate. We do a lot of these things a lot of the time. So the first section, if you will, of Buddhism is how to handle these things. Buddhism, as you can imagine, does not believe you suppress these emotions. Okay? That doesn't work. We know that very well. Okay? So what Buddhism teaches are kind of the antithesis, the antidote, if you will, the opposite of the emotion, of those destructive emotions. Destructive in the sense that they destroy our peace and happiness. Okay? And by beginning to sort of train in the opposite, we can actually derail and completely eliminate an incipient negative or destructive emotion, like anger, for example. Okay? So that's the first section of Buddhism. The second section is philosophy. Okay? I don't know if Barbara mentioned this, but I was a philosophy major in college. And so one of the things that actually attracted me to Buddhism was the philosophy of reality, which in Sanskrit is called shunyata. In English we call this emptiness. And there's a little bit of a danger here, a caveat. Some people think it may mean nothing. Okay, so nothing exists, I don't exist, you don't exist, nothing exists, therefore I can do whatever I want. Okay? That's not Buddhist. Okay. Self-discipline is very, very important. Okay? But not a self-discipline that involves guilt. There's actually not a word for guilt in the Tibetan language, and there's not a concept in Buddhism for guilt. There's actually an expression in Tibetan which is 9 times falling down, or sometimes translated as 9 times failing, and 9 times picking yourself up. This is very practical. It's a recognition that we're all human. Anybody here not human? Raise your hand. Sometimes we have visitors from other planets. So we're all human. And I think it was Shakespeare that said to err is to be human. Yeah. I mean, that's part of being alive, is to make mistakes. And so it's a very nice kind of attitude expressed in the Tibetan language. It comes from a Buddhist tradition, which is we make mistakes and we just pick up and keep going. We're not guilty. We don't beat ourselves up. Okay, so that's important. And that philosophy of shunyata, or emptiness, I'm not going to talk about much today because it's kind of a deep, difficult subject. I'm not going to, leave it because it's not important. It's extremely important, but it would take a lot more time. Okay? I'd like to kind of cover a lot more ground tonight as the, let's see, I can do this, as the title of the, this work this morning. Okay, well, we'll try to get the next slide if we can. It's the title slide. So if we can't get the title slide, I got to leave. No. These two. Right. The date, right? 14. Date is right. So, the Buddhist philosophy actually, on a deeper level, tries to answer the question, who am I? I mean, from a deep philosophical perspective of analysis. And you might say, well, give me a break. But actually, it's very, very important because the way we see ourselves is so distorted, so mistaken, it gets us into trouble again and again and again. Okay? And so the Buddhist wisdom is trying to sort all that out. Get rid of that distortion, that mistake, and to see ourselves and everyone else in the world correctly. And when we do that, an amazing thing happens. We don't get angry anymore. Zero. Zero. We're no longer selfish. Zero. Because there's no one to be selfish. Okay? No one to be angry. So all of a sudden life changes radically. Love and compassion are just constantly moving us forward. Okay? And tremendous joy. I mean bliss, joy. Okay? Constantly, even when we sleep. So it's a worthy endeavor to try to go deeper. Tonight is we don't have enough time. Maybe we don't have the background. Maybe some of you do. But maybe in the future we can spend more time with it. Because I love that subject very much. That's what brought me into Buddhism about 30, actually more. when I was an adolescent, 14, 15 years old. Okay. And the third part is what we would kind of normally call religion. You know, ritual and prayer and what we call pujas and things like that. Okay. So you can see it's not a typical religion. It is. Okay, so as our, let's see, I think I have, where's my yoga? Does I have my yoga? Mr. Yoga. I think I have a pointer. Yeah, okay, good. So inner peace and contentment is what we're talking about tonight. Okay. Inner peace and contentment. And I'm going to try to talk about a few different themes. And, you know, we can either talk about this directly, okay, which is not so easy. We will a little bit. But we'll also talk about it indirectly. And by that I mean, what are the things that block our inner peace and contentment? Okay? And then a little bit, we'll talk about how to unblock. Okay? Now, that's a tall order for an hour, or 45 minutes, but we'll do a little bit. So it's kind of a little bit of an introduction. I want to leave a good half hour, maybe more, for discussion. Because you guys, I know, have lots of questions. You may have lots of questions. And if you do, we'll leave ample time for that. And I also thought we would meditate together. Okay? Just a short meditation. And we'll do that after I finish talking to you and lose my voice. I don't think this is going to work, but start over.
I can't remember what I had for breakfast. I'm going to start over. Actually, I remember what happened. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Let's see, is this kind of right? Okay, good. So this is about expectations and speed. I think many of us have high expectations for ourselves. I think that's common throughout the world. I find it very common among Japanese people, very common in Hong Kong. I find it somewhat common, less maybe, but somewhat common from people I meet in Russia and also in India, particularly big cities. People have high expectations. Often these high expectations are family-driven, you know, from when we're young. And they often get us into trouble, like the fish right here. You know? Wait a minute. Wait, how did we get there? This isn't working. No. Here we go. Good. So this is where we're going to be. So you can see, recognizing high expectations and being too speedy, and the fish isn't going to make it. Okay? The fish each time is going to try, but it's going to fail. It's not going to make it. So that's what we often do to ourselves. We beat ourselves up unnecessarily because we have too high expectations, or maybe we're trying to cram too much into 3 minutes. Okay? We just keep cramming and cramming, and we think that's going to get us somewhere, and actually it backfires. Just like the fish, can't make it. So, get the rhythm now. So, to reduce our expectations and our speed just a little bit, makes it then doable. Okay, it's a very simple thing, but it's actually extremely beneficial for many of us. Now, anybody here gentle towards yourself? Raise your hand if you're gentle towards yourself. Raise your hand if you're gentle towards yourself. So about 25% of you. How many of you are gentle towards yourself enough? Raise your hand.